My father was Randy Capoeman. He was a pretty notorious artist in the Quinault Indian Nation and all throughout Washington State. And so I just wanted to show you what I've been up to these past couple of weeks. And I am not really an employee, so I don't get all the benefits as a full-time worker. So this is some of the work that I've been doing over the past couple of years to maintain employment, and this is how I put food on the table. And if you want to take a closer look, this is some of the stuff I want to show you on how I make my paddles. This is a traditional red cedar paddle from the Quinault Indian Nation. These paddle blades were made in specific shapes to, back in the day, they were supposed to tell you, like, this paddle shape, you would be able to tell this is a Quinault. And I come from the Quinault Indian Nation. There's various different designs, and you were able to tell which tribe is what depending on what shape of paddle you had. Because when you're far out in the ocean and you're doing protocol and you're asking permission to come ashore, you can't really hear their voices if they're way out there. But we were usually able to tell what kind of paddle they had, and we've been around long enough to know that those were upriver natives from a different tribe, or they were our relatives from the northern or southern tribes. But they all have different styles and ways of making their paddles. This is just the way I've been taught how to make cedar paddles, and I just want to walk you through a quick little tutorial of how I have been taught how to make these paddles. So I usually start off with a quick line, and I'll trace out my outline. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then once I've established my outline, thankfully we have these modern tools nowadays to where it makes things a little easier and makes things a lot simpler. If you want to step back, it's probably going to be kind of loud on the microphone. Okay, well, I don't got... right, due to time's sake, I'm only going to cut half of the paddle. But see, I have cut out the outline of the paddle, and once I did that, I'm going to establish a center line all the way down the paddle. And once I did that, these are a traditional tool called the adze, and we use this for taking out big chunks of wood, and to get the blade down to the width that you want. This is the tool that you'd use for taking off the most amount of meat in the wood. You would get that all the way down to the center line, and I usually like to keep about 1/8 of an inch on each side, and that will give you your blade shape. And you do that to both sides, and once you start to get down to the paddle like this, I would grab my sander. Once again, our modern day tools help out a lot. And I would sand this down with probably 3 different grits of sandpaper. I usually start with 60 grit sandpaper and then work my way to 80 grit sandpaper, and then when I want a really fine sand, I'll go to 120 or 220 sandpaper. And after I've gone through the highest grit, which is around 220 grit, then I'll clean it off, and then I'll draw my design on there. And if you can see, I have a pencil and I draw my design in there. And once the line is drawn on the paddle, I'll usually write like the colors that I want to paint the paddle. Like I'll write like a red or a blue, just like the letter. And then once I've established that, I would usually, this is what it looks like when I draw my designs on paper. It starts to look like this. This is what it would look like. And I'll start to paint, and here's what some finished products look like. And this is a sea wolf, and this is what it looks like after all of that process. It usually takes me about a day to 2 days, depending on how quick the paint dries. And this is another one. This one is yellow cedar, and this one's red cedar. Red cedar is a lot more lighter. And just like I was saying, this is a different style paddle, and as you can see, the handle is a little different. I call these upriver designs, and we have some more of those. These are just for people who who want a different variety of paddles. And another yellow cedar. Also, we make I make dance paddles. These are usually for ladies, and they're for when we're dancing, and they're fairly small. They're about 2 to 3 feet, but I'll paint a design on these, and these are the same exact process, just